Come on. They're right there. Let's go. Move, 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 move.
This episode of Choices Not Chances is sponsored by Louisiana Gun Shop, located in Broussard, Louisiana, just south of Lafayette. For more information, stay tuned at the end of this episode.
Welcome to Choices Not Chances with Ryan and Matt, episode 1. 99% of the time, it's the choices we make, not the chances shit. Life comes down to making good choices when seeking good results. This is a excerpt out of a safety brief that was given to us countless times by the one and only Gordon Emanuel when we were under his command as a second and a first lieutenant. Huh?
Both, yeah.
Both, yeah. He was first lieutenant when I got there, and still to this day, best commander, in my opinion, that I've ever had, and I'm sure you could echo that. It was great, and so that's what we wanted to name the podcast, Choices Not Chances, because it really boils down to that. If you want good things to happen, if you want to live a positive life, if you want to seek self-improvement, you want to rid yourself of the demons, you got to add responsibility, and you have to make good choices. You make good choices, you're going to get good results. So without further ado, I guess we're going to get into this. It's going to be a little bit of a more administrative podcast. At the end is we're going to make some announcements for the actual podcast and release you guys to our social media pages and things of that nature. But first and foremost, we're going to talk about Lions of Marjah, which was a book that I wrote and I just published, and it's going to be about Marjah, Afghanistan. When Matt and I were in 3-6, Matt and I were in 3-6 together, and we made a push into Afghanistan during an initial invasion of Operation Mashtarak, and it was a wild ride. And so I tried to document it as accurately as I could throughout the book, and we've received so many positive results so far since the launch of the book. You can check it out for yourself on Amazon, and check out the reviews, check out what people are saying, and if you like this podcast, if you like what we get into in the first couple of episodes reviewing the book, then you're gonna love the book. I mean, straight out.
And you're gonna love the podcast.
And you're gonna love the podcast. This podcast is where
it isn't. It isn't only gonna be about the book for sure.
No, and we're gonna get into the book. But this episode, we wanted to gear it more towards telling you guys like the reasons why we wanted to podcast and just have the conversation about what our intent is and what our intent has started as, and hopefully just kind of convey, our thoughts. We haven't talked about this yet. So Matt, I'm sure you got your own personal reasons for wanting to, jump into this venture, with me. And, I'd like to get into that right now. So, take it as far back as you need to take it, and let us know why'd you want to do this.
The reason I wanted to kind of start this podcast, one, is a good excuse to spend a little more time with you, being you live in North Carolina, I live in Louisiana, but that's definitely a big thing, and also I'm a huge fan of the Jocko podcast.
Oh, definitely.
And Cleared Hot, and for as many stories as they have told, there's a lot more out there that haven't been told because they just don't have the time to do it. So if we get another platform out there for them, for those stories to be told, I think that'll be good.
Absolutely. We both, myself and Matt as well, huge Jocko fans, huge podcast fans in general. I mean, I podcast Jordan Peterson, I podcast Jocko Willink, Joe Rogan, Eric Weinstein, Brett Weinstein, and it's not all war. I've come to know that, I'm 1 week away from finishing my bachelor's degree, and I think that over the same period of time, I've probably learned an equal to or or more amount of knowledge that I've learned and retained from podcasts than I did going to university. So I think there's a lot to be said in that, and I agree with you. You know, reaching out, getting those stories told, bridging that civilian military divide. I was just on a conference call with a Wounded Warrior Umpire Association, headed up by former Major Greg Wilson from the United States Marine Corps, an organization that I got with back in the day for therapy and camaraderie and stuff in transition, and just telling them the same thing. I mean that's what it boils down to. So what else? Like, so you wanted to get the stories told, and
one of them's a selfish reason.
Okay.
I want to be the Jocko in the room.
You want to be the Jocko in the room. I think everybody wants to be the Jocko in the room.
Well, when I listen to those podcasts, I have my own questions, and I want them answered.
Right.
So I want to be the one to.
So if you have a question, hey, you want to have a question, you want to ask it. Ask it.
Exactly.
All right.
So,
all right.
There's only one way to do that. You got to have your own show.
You got to have your own show. I hear you.
Or, well, you know what I'm saying.
What's your own show? It's our own show.
Our own show. Yeah.
Absolutely. And
what about you? Why do you?
I have multiple reasons. Some of which I just talked about. Big one is bridging the military-civilian divide. I don't think there's a better way, at least that I know, to bridge that, other than to give the raw experiences of the warfighter and hopes of, a lot of those divides that we have. A good thing that one of the reviews that I got on the book, it's the same reason that I'm doing this. I want people to know what 18 to 22-year-old kids go out there and do for them. And I think they take it for granted in our country too often. And, we've reached a point in our society where we're so free that we don't even understand what people do for that freedom and what they go through and what their families go through and what their friends go through. And, when you have 22 veterans a day killing themselves, be it through drug overdose, actual suicide, attempts on their life, things of this nature, it's too much. And that's the big reason. I want to bridge the divide. I want to pass as much knowledge as I can. And, arguably, and not arguably, we've seen some intense combat for a long duration period, and that has effects on people. And guess what? It's supposed to. It's not that it's supposed to affect you negatively, but you're doing something unnatural that you've never done before. It's going to have adverse effects on your psyche. And, we learn more and more in the medical community and things of that nature about the brain and traumatic brain injury and things of this nature. But, it really boils down to, in my opinion, a support system, somewhere where you can go, where you can trust, and whether that's a friend, whether that's a counselor, whether that's, a perfect stranger on a crisis line, but having that buffer pad, let's say, of somebody, of somebody talking to you, even if it's just to hear you vent and let you kind of get those demons out. And then once you get them out, hopefully, and I would say, 8 out of 10 times when I'm engaging veterans, at this point that are on the brink, it's like 8 times out of 10, if they don't have some sort of alcohol or drugs in their system, we can come to a consensus that things were better than when the conversation started. And that's another big push. I mean, we gotta talk about what we're doing to ourselves.
Right.
We got to talk about the abuse. We got to talk about how that's not cool. That's not something we preach. Does it serve a purpose to the individual? Yeah, like I get it.
To an extent.
I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't have adverse, effects on certain portions of your life, but I drink a lot coming home, and to an abusive level, and a lot of guys do, and it's like, I just want to sleep. I just want to feel normal. I don't want this anxiety. I can't get it to go away. Those kinds of things, and they'll drive a person, to do irrational things and to do things that they weren't prone to doing before, and it's time to remove the negative stigma from that, fellas. Like, it's we know enough now to know that the negative stigma shouldn't be attached to PTSD. If you want to call it a disorder, I really don't. You've seen some unnatural things, and that's kind of how it goes. And so because of all of that, this is my attempt, or our attempt, I guess you would say. Sorry, Goose. to, you know, get that knowledge out there. And, you know, we talk about this before we launch this thing and, you know, got set up, and so much time and effort has been put into it. So many people to thank for it, and we'll get to that. But we talked about it before. If we could turn this passion project into something, a conduit for information and knowledge that pertains to the veteran, that maybe could help one person. If we have one person, then it's worth it. And if we help a bunch of people, that's worth it too. I mean, that's, you know, tenfold, right? You know, every person can help in some way. So,
or if we can help a civilian who never served with the story of a veteran.
Absolutely. And that, going back to the civilian, bridge the gap. Let people know that they're walking amongst giants and they don't even know it.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a big point to me, for sure. And we mean to bring light to it. I mean, throughout our time there, we had some ups and downs throughout our time, and, you know, I was never the person, I don't think, that even believed in PTSD or even believed that I would be susceptible to something like that. Like, I loved my job. I loved leading Marines. I loved combat. I mean, there are sides of combat you don't love, but, you know, when it came to doing my job, you know, locate, close with, and destroying the enemy. Yeah, I like that part. And
about the only thing I didn't like was the mud.
The mud was bad. We'll get into the mud.
We will definitely.
We were in the mud, and we'll get back to the mud. But yeah, and so, and another thing that's been brought up is the family members. And you said civilians, but I mean, a lot of times the family members can be civilians or are civilians. And you got these mothers, you got these fathers, brothers, and sisters that are back at home, and they do not understand why their person came back this way. They do not understand, and they're afraid to ask the question, did you kill somebody? They're afraid to ask the question, you know, what was it like? What did it feel like in these things? And, you know, on that note, I think that it's important to bring up that, you know, traditional stories need to be told, and we need to have that want, you know, from our younger, you know, American population to want to come in and want to serve. And so I understand the Hollywood side of romanticizing the violence that comes in war. But that's bullshit. And it's not romantic. And it's not fun a lot of times. And when you're in the heat of it, you know, it's real. It gets real quick. So I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
About the romanticism of, well, I don't think it's romantic. There are fun points until the bodies start to drop on your side.
Yeah.
And then, like you say, it becomes very real.
Yeah, the fun's over after that.
Now, when you're fist pumping your buddy in the middle of a firefight and laughing, I think that's a natural response of the body.
Yeah.
To deal with an over stressful situation.
Yeah, I mean, you got a lot to get out, and you know, Marines are always good for that, finding humor in just about anything, and
not just Marines, cops and firefighters.
Let's say high adrenaline people.
Yeah, maybe high stress jobs.
Yeah. And we talk about that in the book. We talk about, you know, the different ways, the different icebreakers, the different tactics, maybe if you want to call it, the different psyches that people take, you know, through the course of a deployment, or through sometimes segments of a deployment can be, you know, much scarier than the other ones. I remember a point that I don't think I talk about in the book, where we got our warning order from LT. We went back to the GP-10 on Dwyer, and then we were asked to, or not asked, we were issued body bags for our guys to carry.
Right.
Yeah, and you know, that wasn't my first time carrying a body bag, but for a lot of guys in second, they hadn't seen a body bag, let alone put one in their kit.
You might not have had one of those in the first unit. I don't remember. But yeah, that's definitely a wake-up call that you don't bring them if you don't think you might not need them.
Yeah, things got real when the black zippers come out. And yeah, I just remember looking at a lot of the guys' faces, and you had the guys that laughed about it, like, we're never going to need these. This is never going to be us. And, whether they believe that or not, it was what
well, that's how they dealt with it.
that's how they put it out there to the universe. Like,
some people laugh when they're nervous. Other people get quiet when they're nervous.
oh yeah, we had guys get quiet. We had guys get emotional. And then, ultimately at the end of the day, once the feelings started coming out, somebody went over to the iHome and hooked up Taylor Swift and blared it on 10. And then, the next thing you got a GP tent full of
hard chargers,
stripping to Taylor Swift, Tim McGraw song and singing almost every word, which is a weird experience. But hey, everybody had a smile on their face after that. So I guess it served its purpose.
Team building.
It's a little team building. No big deal.
Do hard things.
Yeah, do hard things. So yeah, I mean, whichever way you want to look at it, the intent of the podcast is to get information and stories out there for two reasons. One, on a therapeutic side, for veterans, a place to go to hear stories of like-minded individuals, and then on the civilian side, to let these families and these mothers and these fathers, and maybe not even any relation to military whatsoever, and they have absolutely no clue, and tell them what it's about. Tell them what, like I said, 18 to 22-year-old kids are going out there and doing for them, and maybe if we're lucky, a little bit of empathy starts to show through, and a little bit, at least a little bit of courtesy, or it's not even recognition. It's not like a thank you for my service kind of thing. It's just like, understand who I am a little bit, and understand, why I'm amped, and for a lot of guys don't struggle with that. And like, even for myself, I've gotten to a point where I can get out of town, and I don't have these, these anxiety attacks like I used to have them. But for the guys that do have them, like, this is a place, come soak up the knowledge, learn. And what I've seen in a lot of my beginning of my, I guess you would say, treatment or my counseling and things like that, when we first came home, a lot of guys just didn't want to admit that they had an issue. Yeah. A lot of guys seen the negative stigma that it brought to them, to their commands. A lot of guys didn't want to admit to their friends that they were having problems. And I mean, still to this day, we have guys that we were in country with, and they don't want their leadership from that time, now 10 years later, to know how they're doing if it's not good.
Right.
And, because
it
carries
like
in
that for a long time.
Sure. I mean, you feel shameful, like, am I the only one feeling like this way? If I'm the only one, then this is me. This isn't everybody else, kind of thing. And and a lot of guys are afraid to, get that out there and just say, this is my issue. This is, this is affecting me. And then I'd say another side of it is, especially in the Marine Corps and in the grunts, you're coming from a place of straight alpha male, and the first sign of any kind of beta weakness. I mean, it's dogs on raw meat, and they're gonna get you, and that's just the life we live, right? And
well, you wouldn't be good at what you do if you didn't have that mentality.
100. I couldn't agree with you more.
But at the same time, loving your brother, you need to be able to sit down and put all that aside and just talk it out.
Absolutely. And
we're gonna get back. We're gonna get deeper, way deeper into that. So.
Oh yeah, in the book, we're gonna do a good review of the book, guys, and then all of you that want more on it, go purchase it. I promise you, it's gonna put out for you. You're gonna enjoy what you get. All right, Matt. With all the podcast pleasantries out of the way, we're gonna delve into the book a little bit. But first, before we start the book, I think it's important to just go ahead and talk about, like, why even serve. Was it a calling? Was it an event? Was it family business? What was it that got you initially wanting to serve?
Well, as you know, and I'll let everybody else in the listenership know, it is kind of the family business. I forget the count of how many people in my family have served in either the military or mostly the Marine Corps. But I think from a young age, I knew I was going to serve the Marine Corps, in the Marine Corps. Of course.
How many family members do you have?
I lost count.
So it's a lot.
It's a lot.
Got a regular Lieutenant Dance in here.
At one point, there were the 4 older boys, grandchildren, on my father's side. We were all in Helmand Province at the same time. All infantry Marines.
Getting after it.
In different battalions. 2 of which were in the 6th Marines. Me and another cousin.
Motivates me. And so what about older generations? So you said family business. Is this like dad's?
My father, 2 uncles, a great uncle in World War II, Guadalcanal, Peru. My great grandfather in World War I was in the Army.
Okay.
Medic, from what I've been told. One of my aunts. I have another female cousin and another cousin on my dad's side and another cousin on my mom's side.
So pretty much your whole family.
We're reaching platoon strength.
You guys
for
could,
sure.
You guys could field a solid platoon.
Yes.
Maybe
squad reinforced.
Squad reinforced minimum. I love it. Okay, so
not only that, of course, September 11th, I was in 8th grade history class when the first tower came down. They wouldn't let us watch it. Obviously, I guess we were too young at the time.
What state did you grow up in?
We had to bring that up.
Maybe why they didn't watch it. I don't know. I was in Ohio.
I was in Massachusetts. You already know this.
They wheeled in TVs we didn't even have access to let us watch it.
That strikes a chord in a patriotic man's heart.
Absolutely.
Or a boy's heart, for that matter.
Absolutely.
And just I wanted revenge for sure.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
As I got older, of course, 2001, and I joined in 2006, or I went to boot camp in 2006. It changed a little bit, and the real reason that I found, and I've thought about it many times since then and up to this day, and it really gets down to because you were going to be there, because the guys were going to be there, and not necessarily you, but because someone was going to be there.
Somebody had to do that job.
I wanted to be there with them. And that's definitely something that I hold dear to my heart, that you need to be there with your guys. And you don't even know who they are when you sign the paper, but you know you're going to be there with them.
You know you're going to have some buddies.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
The man to your right and to your left. It's so cliche. It almost makes me throw up.
Hey,
but like LT says, if it's cliche, it's because it's true.
Yeah, it didn't get cliche by itself from people not using it, right? So
that's right.
There's definitely that.
Well, I want to hear about why you joined.
I mean, you hit a lot of it right there. Growing up, I think my earliest memory overall was somewhere around middle school. It was like the first time we had a job fair, right? Where they come and, they wear their uniform and they tell you all about, what they do. And, it was through the school. And there was an Army sniper there, doped out in a ghillie suit. And, I don't know how old I am, 14, not even that, right? 13 years old. And I see this dude, he's got face paint stripes on. He looked like Rambo. He's got like a whole ghillie suit on. He didn't have a weapon. Even then, the school policy was, you're not bringing the M40 in for the children to play with that career day.
Definitely not on ammo for sure.
Yeah. So, and that's my earliest memory. And it was like, I grew up in a family, with 4 boys, no girls. We, Army, cops and robbers, sports, competition. And then, you have the end competition, or the end fighting, as you call it, or the brotherly love that you come up with, and you're getting tough. And you just, I had a very, I would say a very strict I wouldn't even say very. I'd say I had a strict rearing, and my father was always very appreciative. He didn't have anybody. He didn't serve. You know, his dad didn't serve, but his grandfather, my great grandfather, served in the Second World War as an army medic, and so he always had that appreciation. And you know, he had heard stories from my great grandfather when he was growing up and things of that nature. And so there was always that patriotic pride that, you know, you will take your hat off. No, you will put your hand on your heart and say the Pledge of Allegiance. You will respect that. And he always had that, even though, you know, even to this day, I'm glad. I mean, it shaped my life. It shaped me as a man. I don't know where all that came from, right? But it came anyway. So I had that memory in 8th grade. And then, like you said, I think I was a sophomore in high school.
Yeah, because you're 2 years older.
I think I was a sophomore in high school. And I just remember we're sitting in, I was in sociology, oddly enough. And I remember Mr. Miller, one of my favorite, long time. I tell everybody, you know, as far as high school goes, all time, and definitely in the top 2 to 3, you know, including my other degrees. So, great guy, and you know, you could tell just like what you said when, you know, they come in the room, they didn't want you guys to see it or whatever. Like, but they wheeled a table like a cart TV, you know, the old cart TVs they have in the schools. Oh, yeah. We didn't have, you know, the TVs hanging in the rooms, and so they wheel this cart TV in just in time for, you know, us to see basically Tower 2 get hit. Tower 1's already smoldering. You know, New York City's crazy. I mean, it was so crazy live. Like, and you can probably look back on YouTube and see some stuff. But when you're looking at this thing live, it's like the news anchors were freaking out, you know, cussing, you know, holy fucking shit, there's another one, and boom, it would slam into the building. And I just remember sitting there in that desk thinking, like, this is the United States of a fucking America. What is going on? Why is this happening? You know? And somebody, I don't know why it's happening, but somebody has to atone for what took place today, right? Somebody has to make sure that never happens again. And I remember that being, you know, boiling my blood and being just that. I mean, the only thing I can, you know, really put into words is a calling. As soon as that happened, it was it. That was a wrap for me. My, you know, whatever my future had been cemented, and, you know, and I was going to do something about it. And, you know, so then that was it for me. So then my senior year, you know, depped in, went with the dress blues because they look the best.
Panty droppers.
There it is. And,
call them how I see them.
You know, outside of going to the Marine Corps, the only other option is to go to be a Navy SEAL. I mean, if you're going to go harder.
Really?
And man, I just couldn't justify the thought in my mind of being an open contract if something happened, if I got injured, something of that nature. Yep. And it was pretty easy to get into the 03 field at the time.
Yeah.
There wasn't many people coming in going, hey, I want to go 03 and I want to ship this date in September right after I get home from elk hunting. Can you make that happen? And he was like, yep. You know,
no problem.
No factor. Old Jocko adage. Yeah. He was like, yep, I got you. And so I graduated. I spent the summer hanging out with my buddies, you know, probably raising hell, knowing that I wasn't going to see these people again for a while, or maybe ever, who knows. And then in September, gosh, I don't remember the date, you know, 15th, you know, 12th, something like that. I left with my dad and went out to, and my dad and my older brother, and went out to Idaho and to bow hunt some elk. And then following that trip, I got home and shipped to Parris Island to put my boots on my foots on the yellow footprints, and that was it. Now I'm in, right? And 100 miles an hour, and, you know, we could go into the boot camp stories of.
Well, we're gonna save that for a later.
Yeah, of the ones that everybody likes to hear anyway, of boot camp, and everybody wants to hear them, and then they laugh like, I don't know what y'all are thinking. I don't know why you guys laugh about this. And so,
or other Marines hear them and was like, yeah, it happened to everybody.
Right.
So there I was doing something that everybody else already did.
Right. Yeah, trying to make the best of it.
Right.
You know. Yeah, I was a wrap, and I was a Marine. That's it. I went to boot camp. I mean, I loved everything. I loved everything. Um, and then I started my. You got a good recruiter story for you. He was gone when I came home, but somehow I ended up with a security forces contract. So I signed on a 5-year contract, and he promised me the world, all the weapons training you can get. You're going to the grunts anyway, and you're just going to go with more training. Instead, it was a 2-year
SWAT team of the Marine Corps,
Yeah,
baby.
yeah, right. And so, yeah, they used to call it the fake ass SEAL team when I got there.
Still should be called that.
Yeah, because it's not the same thing. I can promise you that. But
we don't swim so well.
Yeah, we're supposed to.
I sink like a rock.
Yeah, well, you're supposed to be amphibious, Marine.
Again, the mud.
We'll get to the mud. We'll get to the mud. Yeah, so now I'm in. I go to FAST. I do a Cuba deployment. Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, fence line deployment. I did a couple other things with FAST, and then we went on like our I guess our culminating deployment was to be a quick reaction force out of Southeast Asia as a fleet anti-terrorism security team. FAST element.
Pulled that one right out of the spectrum, didn't
Right,
you?
right out of the ether. And so it was impactful because I had a great command leadership there. 03s by luck because other MOSs can get in at the time could get in as like a B billet, and so you weren't guaranteed to have like solid leadership. We had solid leadership.
Actually, I had solid leadership in my FAST platoon too.
Yeah, so like a lot of great training, advanced urban combat school, Hearst, and so when I came to the fleet. After our bid in Bahrain, we got activated to do a non-combatant evacuation out of Beirut, Lebanon, which was an experience, non-combat related experience, and we were helping people, which was great because we were helping American citizens and their families, get out of a war-torn area. Hezbollah and Israel were kind of going at it again at that time. That was in like around 2006 time frame, 2005 time frame.
Well, every 2-3 years they get it on.
It seems like every 2 or 3 days right now. Gaza's on fire. So I did my bid. I came home, and then I left out. I went to 3-2, 3rd Battalion, 2nd Marines, and picked up a squad, named a company. Did a pump to Al-Qaim region. I was in Karabla and Sedan, Rawa. And worked the streets there and, regular line squad, which was good for me in the long run pertaining to like, coming back to the book, the Marjah deployment being much, much different than any other deployment. I did much more kinetic. And so I think it was good as like a junior squad leader, as a corporal, to get out there with a squad for the first time and be able to develop my patrolling, tactics in an actual, real life situation. And, I think that later on, that paid off in a big way for me. Once we got downrange in a different situation. So, and ultimately, so I did a pump with 3rd Battalion, 2nd Marines, Lima Company as a squad leader. And then following that, they were slated to go on a MEU. And I didn't want to do that. I just came out of Iraq. I didn't want to go on a MEU. I didn't want to go get on a boat and float around. It just wasn't my idea of fun.
It's not.
And if I could have got out of it, I would have. And sure enough, there was a spot on the All Marine boxing team at the 172-pound weight class. And so I went and tried out. I won my fight. And so I chopped over TAD over to temporary assignment duty over to the boxing team, All Marine boxing team. And then I didn't put camis on for like 9 months. I boxed. We fought up and down the East Coast. I had a great time. And
5-1.
5-1. Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, it's been a while. I got banged up on one of them pretty good. But ultimately had a great time. Met some great people. Got to see a different side of the Marine Corps than the fleet Marine Corps. The line company. And it was a good experience. And, at the end of the tenure there, 3-2 called up, said, hey, it's time to come home, because they ultimately had control of that. And they needed somebody to come back and run like the remain behind element that didn't go on the MEU. So now they're gone. I get back. I get over to 3-2, and I'm in this remain behind element, which is like where you go to lose your soul.
I know.
Yeah. And so like the one thing is all your buddies are deployed, and then the other thing is you're with a bunch of like admin seps and legal holds and guys that really just don't care about their careers, and so you got to fight that
and try and contain it,
and contain, like, not blowing up on them daily for just being who they are and what they are, and so you lose your soul a little bit. It just sucks right out of your body.
And also dealing with the appointments and making sure they make the appointments. And
oh man,
I mean, for the med seps, that's the big deal, you know. And then dealing with their doctors and all that too.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah. And then I mean, half the time, if you have admin seps that are in your RBE and haven't made it to regiment yet, you're dealing with guys that have either popped on on an ear analysis or a host of other things that you can be charged with. So
right.
And you're dealing with them, and a lot of times that's not fun, and it can take away from you, opposed to you being around a bunch of war fighters all day. You're around a bunch of people that don't want to, couldn't want to be further away from any of that.
Right.
And so, and so I was in RBE, and it was time to, slap the table again. My contract ran up. My initial 5-year contract ran up, and conveniently the Marine Corps was under incentive for operational forces for guaranteed 2 years. And so I slapped the table on that. I re-upped and was originally slated to stay in 3-2 at the regimental level and be on Colonel Kennedy's PSD when he went back into country. And so I was stoked. I'm like, cool, I already have a report here under the command, like, no big deal. This is going to be awesome. And then like a week and a half later, I got chopped to 3-6. And it was confusing as to why at first, because 3-6 was slated to go on a Okinawa deployment, like a UDP, or I think it was Okinawa. Yeah. And so we're slated for Okinawa. I check in to 3-6, something like August, July. I think I checked in July, late July, early August. And as luck would have it, the sergeant major of the battalion was out on leave. And so we sat at the battalion level for all the way till September. So
I was going to say, we didn't meet until September.
We were there July, August, and then in September he came off of leave and then chopped us to our elements. And so then I chopped to second, which again, for me coming in, about to pick up sergeant.
That's second kilo.
Kilo Company. Yep, Kilo Company, second platoon, got chopped over there. And ultimately I was still a little bit confused because when I got there, they were TO1 squad leaders, and I was about to pick up sergeants. Like, you're not going to put me under another sergeant, and I've led a squad already, kind of thing. Like, so I was a little confused about what was going down. And then, then things changed. Took a
wildly drastic turn,
to say the least.
The other type of deployment that they were talking about was possibly going to Al-Assad.
Okay.
That wasn't cut sandbags and just basically break Al-Assad down, which I'm sure just would have been just a joy of a deployment.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I definitely would have still got out when I got done with that one.
Wouldn't have changed much.
No.
Right. And so that's what we were working with. I got over to 3-6, and we're TO1 squad leaders, TO1 the platoon. You guys had already been to CACs. You'd already done an entire workup.
The whole workup was
you were in the chute. 3-6 was already in the chute when I got there as the most combat ready element, I think, on the East Coast.
I think the only one that was ahead of us was 1-6.
1-6. Who ultimately we shared our fate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it was. I think we were on like 9 or 10 months of the workup at that point.
Right.
Like, they were starting to kick me. I was out to corporal's course at one point, and we were starting to get a lot of TAD, like quick schools, like month-long schools that you could just kind of knock out real quick.
Right.
But I think they knew what was coming down the pipe.
They probably did.
I mean,
they seen the writing on the wall at least, right?
Right.
And so
they knew we were leaving that night 7 months before then.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that might have been a little fluff, but
Right.
yeah. And so you want to get into the book real quick. You have some spots that you want to kind of touch on regarding this timeline. And so you go ahead and kick that.
I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and read this first paragraph of the chapter. President Barack Obama approves a significant troop increase for Afghanistan. On December 2nd, 2009, President Barack Obama orders an extra 30,000 troops to deploy to Afghanistan in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. This was not a decision the president took lightly at all. Upon the initial request from General Stanley McChrystal, the president reportedly deliberated on whether to sign off on the surge for nearly 3 months. General Stanley McChrystal, the U.S. commander in Afghanistan, welcomed the speech, saying he had been given a clear military mission and the necessary resources. So with those 30,000 troops, that basically sets the stage for us no longer going to Okinawa,
Right.
and we now know we're going to Afghanistan. We don't know where, but I think there was whispers of a place called the Helmand River Valley or Helmand Province. Like that was the hot spot, I think.
Yeah.
In that time.
Yeah, I think that the intelligence came in to say that this is where they were. This is where they were holding out, trying to make that final stand or rebuild or, reconsolidate. And sure enough, yeah. So the speech comes out from the president, and then everything changes. Being the most, following 1-6 being the most combat ready element, we were chalked away from Okinawa's deployment and now into this Helmand River Valley.
And knew it was going to get kinetic or be kinetic.
We
We
knew it could be. That's for sure. And I know that as soon as that happened, there were some adjustments made, let's say, to the platoon. This is a good point to get into transitional leadership and the transition of leadership. And anybody that's not ever been in the service, and especially in the infantry, we have constant changeover, right? From people getting out to people EASing and ending their active service, or PCSing and just switching, making a permanent change of station. Whether that be you're moving from Camp Lejeune to Cali, for instance, and going out there, Hawaii, different areas, and then you got the people that are going to lateral move out of the O3 field and into a different field. So it's this constant shift. And when the orders came out that we were getting chopped away from Oki and going into a kinetic fight in the Helmand River Valley, personnel changes had to happen. And at that time, I still didn't have a squad. I was still at the battalion level, which seemed like I did a urinalysis every 2 days on somebody's company, somebody's platoon. And because I was new and I didn't have a platoon, I was tasked with some of my other fellow corporals and sergeants from 3-2 that came with me to be the urinalysis watchers, the PP watching. And so we stayed locked in doing that for like a solid 30 days, waiting on Sergeant Major to come back. He chops us in. We leave, go to Kilo 2, and then the order comes out, changes everything, and we lose Kelk and Creel.
Yep.
And Kelk and Creel were the 2 squad leaders. Kelk had 3rd squad, right?
And Creel was mine.
And Sergeant Creel had you over in 2nd
squad. Yep.
Do you want to go ahead and talk about
what do you want to know?
Yeah, man. You look. I've been in a situation a couple of times that I was put in there. I'll talk about my side of it first, I think, and then I'd love to get your perspective on the transition and on how things went down, because I know it's a sore subject, but I think it's a necessary subject to bring up.
Sure.
Regardless of who the personnel is.
Yep. There's a lesson learned in there somewhere.
And absolutely, there's lessons. And there's lessons that I learned the hard way going to 3-2. I transitioned as a fast company corporal to come in and take a squad over from, a corporal who had already been to Iraq, already proved himself in the arena, and was looking forward to taking over the squad. And then here I come from fast team, which do not hold a very good reputation getting fast NCOs
At all.
or security forces NCOs to the grunts, because typically you don't have MOS credibility, and depending on where you go, you might be put in a bunker in Kings Bay. I got lucky, but nobody knows that.
Right.
I'm checking in. All they know is I'm a fast guy. It's like, not this again. And so I check in, and then I check into Kilo Company, and that was rough because the guys that I checked in with were late that morning. There's like half of us were on time and half of us were late, and the half of us on time were like, damn, we can't leave them.
Yes,
Like, those were our buddies. Nah. So we bit that one, and we all checked in late, and that's in the book. It ended horribly. Checking in to your company command late on the very first day of check-in, and to do it to that gunny that has the tanned up, dried out leather skin, smokes a pack of cowboy killers a day. Yeah, so he was that guy, and I could have swore at some point during our ass chewing his nose was going to start bleeding, and it didn't that day, but it did in the future. And so we move in. Whatever, I talk to the company staff, and I get assigned to my first sergeant later that afternoon. First Sergeant Petrakis later that afternoon. He assigns me, Herbie, and Davis, some other characters from the book that came over from 3-2 with me, and signs us to Lima. Signs us to Kilo, and then
Major that signed you to Kilo.
Second, he signed us to second platoon. First sergeant signs second. Sergeant Major signs Kilo. Okay, so boom, I get the second platoon. Second platoon's full, doing the whole thing. Now I got to find out a way. A, I got to figure out who I'm going to lead. B, I got to figure out what they know, and how good they are, how proficient they are at their job. I don't know their squad leader. I talked to them, got a pretty good turnover with them. And still at this point, in time before the troop increase, I didn't know what squad I was taking. So I was just kind of feeling out the platoon. I remember we had like a McCree hike that you guys had worked up to. And it was supposed to be like 20-mile hike. And you guys had worked up to it prior to me getting to the unit. And when I was on the boxing team, we didn't do much ruck hiking. And so I was not prepared, and even the command even said, you're not prepared for this if you haven't hiked in a year, and there's no shame if you want to take duty and you want to sit it out, whatever the case. Conveniently, Scotty Davis had already soaked up that duty because he had surgery on his wrist and he wasn't able to go on the hike anyway. So that, even though that wasn't an option to me in my head in the first place, I'm like, I got to give these guys a reason to trust me, and the deployment's coming very fast. They've already done a workup.
Better get in shape.
Trying to give them a reason, right? And so I remember doing that hike, and I killed myself. I led second on that hike, and because, and I wasn't even second squad leader yet, because Creel was leading the platoon at the time, because Staff Sergeant was at small unit leader course, I think.
Yes,
and
something like that.
And out of pocket, and E-Man, I believe, was at Mountain.
He was at Mountain Leaders course.
And so I checked into another sergeant, and then I got to go on this hike, and I'm like, oh my God. And so we go on the hike, and I manned up on like the last 2 or 3 legs and carried the 240. Everybody was hurting. I was hurting. But that was my first embrace of the suck with a new group of guys, and they at least knew that I was going to put out until I couldn't go anymore. And say what you want about conditioning hikes, say what you want about hard, fast, break it off PT from a company command, but doing that kind of stuff definitely builds team building. We can go right back to things. Do hard things and build your team.
And it also builds character.
100%. And I mean, you know, I was never a big proponent of hikes. I didn't like them. I thought that there was absolutely no use for a hike other than to break Marines. You know, that was my contention until we got to Marjah. And when we got to Marjah, we had to do sometimes 17 click clears under fire half the time, you know, moving always, little water, feet throbbing.
LCPs, personnel carriers,
LPCs, that's
there
right.
you go.
Barking on them caddies. And I remember getting done with that clear. I don't know if you remember, we had to go all the way down like by Kathy over towards where like Camp Hansen was and then back out. It was horrible.
Yeah.
And I remember after that being in pain, man, but it wasn't as bad as that hike.
Well, I wouldn't know.
It
I
gave
wasn't
it-
on that hike.
You would.
And I just admitted it.
You just admitted it
So,
to the
cool.
world.
It's not like I wasn't skipping out on it. I was TAD. I'm not going to go if I'm TAD.
Of course not. Why would you?
Nobody would.
Check. So
And I had already done the 12-20, which was supposed to be a 20-miler, and it was only 12 because
that's the one so many people fell out of
I
because it
think
was
they
hot, right?
filled all of the what are they, safety Vicks?
Mm-hmm.
I think they filled all the safety Vicks, and we're like, oh, okay, we got to turn around and go back.
Canking it short, boys.
And we weren't like, the pace was so slow because there were so many fallouts that we weren't going to make the 20 miles before the sun came up, and it was like mid-August or something like that.
Yeah, they said it was like mid-July and it was like 100 degrees with the sun down or something.
Yeah, it was
90-something degrees.
And stupid humidity, like 100% humidity. We were walking in water on land.
Amphibious, as we said. Okay, so that's my transition, and my transition piece there. You know, if you're a new leader and you're coming in, you know, and you mean to lead these men, feel them out. See who's got what. See who bonds good with who. Especially once you get your squad. You know, for me, I always took the approach of coming in and seeing what they knew, seeing how a new element would work together, seeing who I can trust versus who I can't trust to get the job done. You know, who's a CDMF and who's not. You know, and that's can do, motherfucker. So we'll just say CDMF from now on, so we can leave that out. But hey, you get it done, and that's that person that little supervision to no supervision. Hey, I need this done, and I need you to do it, and I need you to get it done without me. And that person can go get it done. And I like to establish who those people are. I mean, typically you want it to be your team leader. Sometimes it's not.
Sometimes it's your team leaders, and you got hard chargers in there too, where you can just be like, hey, I need this done, and it doesn't need to be done by a corporal. I can use my corporal to do something else. You know,
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely. And so that was, you know, take from that what you will, but you know, coming in hard and just being the new sheriff in town, I didn't see that work very often. Not for me, and I've seen other guys take that approach, and it just wasn't good. And so finally, we find out that Kelk and Creel are going to push on and do good things in life, but it's not going to be going to Hellman with us. And so, for me, that was great. I'm like, cool. Second's open, third's open. I know I'm getting one of them, right? And then boom, I get assigned to second, which was, you know, couldn't ask for anything better in hindsight. And really in foresight, I was ready to get my squad. Just like, I don't care which one it is. I need to get them. I'm running out of time. I'd like to get your perspective on all that.
well, I don't know about the whole Kelp thing, being he wasn't my squad leader, but me and Creel were tight. Like, he was my squad leader, and we were tight. Go out to the bar together, drink together, run together, TT together. You train. If you're smoking in the smoke pit. Doesn't matter. You're doing everything together. You're a family. And when he told us that, respect level was at 100. We're now negative 100. And I have nothing else to say to you at this point.
Right.
You know, don't even want to hear about your excuses. You just abandoned your squad. You did almost an entire year-long, maybe not year-long, all right, 10-month workup. And we're getting ready to go to the hornet's nest of the time, and you're not coming. So, I mean, I'd like to think it worked out. But still, you can't replace that feeling, and that made it very hard for me to trust you up front. At first, I didn't want to get too close at first, just in case you decided you didn't want to come to Afghanistan too, you know. So,
got it.
That's what I got to say on that one.
Got it. And so, what about do you have any kind of gauge on was this in the squad, was this a generally held view? Or is this just something you think personally, as far as you know, that you held?
No, I'm not going to speak for the rest of the squad, but right. I definitely, I don't know. I really don't.
Yeah, it wasn't like you guys got in circles and talked about this.
Not really.
This kind of thing.
I mean,
right?
At that point, we really didn't have a choice. I mean, we're gonna have a mission, and you gotta just you just gotta push it on. You just gotta push on. That's all you gotta do. And
and you're not changing it, right? So it's like, okay,
there's nothing you can do. You just gotta deal with the situation.
Right, like this happened.
If you have to take a bite of the shit sandwich, just get it over with. Plug your nose and let's roll.
Right.
You know.
Right. Check. So transition as a new leader, and then the first couple of training ops, and we talk about them in the book, but I only got 2 training ops before we left. We went and zeroed our rifles and got a good combat zero on everybody's optics, and then we went to the helo dunker.
Yeah, the helo dunker.
Went to the helo dunker, and
least favorite evolutions.
I get in a pretty good detail in the book about the helo dunker, but it's suffice to say that it's a hollowed out bird that's up over about a 20-foot pool that has safety divers in it. You strap in like you would be strapped in on the side of the bird, and you know, there's a progression in the pool. They start with chairs, and you know, they start with breathing apparatuses, you know, for oxygen underneath the water. And then you evolve up to getting in that dunk tank, and it's on hydraulics too. So just like a helicopter, all the weight is at the top, and as soon as that thing ditches, if it's a water ditch, that thing's flipping upside down. And so this is try to train you how to get out of that situation, right? And so the culminating event is where you put blackout goggles on, you strap into the bird. It's about 10 feet above the pool's water.
Full gear.
You're in a full kit. You do have a rifle. Basically, your full combat load, you know, minus the ammo because you're in a pool. You're training. And, you know, and then it starts and it drops down. It hits the water. The water comes in fast, and it goes one of 2 ways. Either you go back first down into the water, or you go face first coming up over down into the water. And then you're on. Then you're on. You got to go through your checklist of what you're supposed to do.
Well, I had a few things to add to that anyways, and you just talked to me about the helo dunker like I wasn't there the entire time.
Well, I mean, everybody else wasn't there. I was just trying to give them context of the suck that we were in.
And the final evolution is actually full kit, like you said, blackout goggles, and the entire squad has to get out all together. And if one person fails, the entire squad has to go back through it again, if I remember right. I don't know. They may do it differently nowadays, but I remember that's how we did it. Because I think we had to do it twice because one person, it may have been me. I'm not going to say it was me.
No, it's definitely me.
No.
I have the story.
Okay.
Locked in. I can tell you the story real quick just as a segue.
Okay. I still have another part.
No, I'll come right back to you. But the reason we had to do it multiple times was simply because I was being an arrogant prick. And, you know, when they show us the video of how you're supposed to do it, and you got like this prim and proper, studious little Marine, and you're like, he's not freaking out at all because he's like an instructor, right? But they're videotaping him, and they're like, wait until all the bubbles clear. Once the bubbles clear, extend your rifle and drop it.
Yeah.
Once you've dropped your rifle, retrieve your breathing apparatus from your kit, extend the hose all the way out, place it in your mouth, don and clear, and begin exfil procedures. So my arrogant ass was like, I'm going to do it just like that guy. I'm actually going to wait till all the bubbles are gone. And so I went across the pool and switched out my air can. I put my old air can in the old air can bucket, and I grabbed a new air can.
Oh, I remember this now.
Out of the new can bucket. And so here I am. I'm like, cocky me. I'm going to go over there and do it awesome like the guy in the video. And so I wait till the bubbles clear, running out of air because it takes a while for the bubbles to clear. And I went backwards that time, which meant it was quicker into the water and my nose filled up and burned. And so I'm trying to swallow that down. I'm managing the nose burn. I got my eyes open and I'm watching the little bubbles, and finally the little bubbles clear. I'm like, I got this. So, like an asshole, I raised my rifle out, dropped my rifle, retrieved my breathing apparatus, extended the hose all the way out. Now I'm like running out of air, but I'm like, it doesn't matter.
Because you have air coming.
Because I'm about to don and clear this thing. And so I don hard, which is what you're supposed to do, clear any of the water out of the apparatus, the mouthpiece. And there was no air in that can when I went to retrieve another breath. And the bitch in me came out into like 2.0. Like I went from being the studious, slow representation of doing what was on the video to like oh my God, I got to get out of here. And so I was so, I guess panicked, you could say, that when I let go of everything, I lost my hold on my exfil. So then when I grabbed my exfil, it was in a different spot. So when I twisted to exfil, I was now swimming down in my blackout goggles. And I got a stern grab on like the lower elbow by a scuba diver, and he just ran me straight to the top. And we get to the top, and I'm like,
knew you were flipping.
Yeah, it was funny, man. Like he came up, and he's already got like this big smile on his face. I'm supposed to be the squad leader of the squad that just did perfect, except for the squad leader. And he I put the blackout goggles on. I'm coughing. I got snot running over. He's got this big smile. He's like, man, I knew you were doomed when you came out. You went straight to the bottom of the pool. I was like, oh my God. Yeah, so that was definitely me. But we can go back to the other point that you had.
One, I don't like water in that situation because it's not under my control.
Check. Me either.
About 3 years later, I had to do the helo dunker after getting out of the Marine Corps.
That's interesting.
In the civilian world, to go offshore for the oil field.
Got to know how to get out of that ditch and burn, huh?
Way easier.
One could imagine that the civilian world does it a bit different than ours.
No factor.
Oh my God, yeah.
Now, I remember we had to do multiple fuselages while in the Marine Corps. In the civilian world, one, and you don't sit against the bulkhead. You sit like it's a civilian aircraft.
Okay.
So it's way easier. And you do it in pairs, not in a squad. So if your guy in your pair is decent, you're probably going to be okay.
You don't have to wait on the other 11 guys to not jack it up, right? Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the pairs, they made the guy who could do it, made him do it again. And then after the partner messed it up, the second time they're like, okay, only you who can't
go to
conform.
The recycle bin, Maria.
Yeah. You go do it again, and you're going to do it until you get it, okay?
Exactly.
Because you have to pass this course.
You see those guys over on the left set of bleachers? Go set with them.
Yes, that's pretty much what it was.
Go set with them and figure out what you did wrong, Marine.
Pretty much.
You will be remediated.
But when they told me I had to go do the helo dunker, I pretty much had post-traumatic stress at that point. Like, oh my God, I have to go do this with a bunch of civilians who I don't know. And it wasn't that bad. It's never as bad as you make it out in your mind.
No.
Except for the helo dunker, of course. As worse than I made it out in my mind to be.
Actually, it wasn't for me until that breathing apparatus was empty.
See, when they gave us the breathing apparatuses, I was actually okay. Now, if I'd have gotten an empty one, it would have been freak out city for sure.
Yeah, and I knew I was 12 feet under. I was like, oh my God, this is bad. Like, all that was going through my head was,
all you're going to do is pass out, and they're going to bring you to the top of the IV. You'd be all right.
Yeah, all I was thinking about, here's your first shallow water blackout, Ryan. Congratulations, you've moved up a new tier and jacking this up in the water. So, didn't happen. Made it out.
But I think that's enough on helo dunker.
Yeah, Hilo
I hate
Dunker
that
was
thing.
something, and again, we go through all the I go through all the evolutions in the book of, working up to that final culminating event, and
But I think that was a good team building kind of deal for the squad, being
oh, for
you were
sure.
new squad leader and all that.
I
I'm
mean,
not saying I trusted you after that, but it was close. It was close.
there was some team building. There was some team building. Yeah, yeah, and at this point, I haven't even learned, the names of all of you yet. And a matter of fact, right before the Hilo Dunker is when I was penned. That was when I was promoted. So,
That's true. I forgot you had come to corporate.
Yep, yep. So I got promoted. We did a Hilo Dunker, and I almost drowned on day one of being, or
Sergeant.
day two of being a sergeant. So that was pretty sweet.
The one interesting fact that they told us that in the classroom portion, which I wish would have lasted a lot longer,
Right.
they said the more times you fly on a helo, the more chance you will have of getting in a collision or a crash.
Seems pretty logical to me.
It does.
They did stress that, I suppose. And you know what always impressed me was the last time that I went there, I think it was with you guys. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure there was a gunny there that survived a ditched helicopter off the side of one of the Mew ships.
I don't know if he was there, but we definitely watched the video of it, and that was pretty crazy. They had
now I know it was in the video, but I'm pretty sure that the gunny giving our course was on that bird. But again, I can't remember for sure. But the video is intense because the guy talks about, the bird goes to ditch, and obviously it's going to be violent.
Right.
When you hit the water, it doesn't matter that it's water at that point. Really, you're going to hit hard. Things are going to get black. And he talked about, I think in the video he talked about being on the 50, and when the bird hit, it actually knocked him out, broke a couple of his ribs, unbeknownst to him at the time, and then he wakes up and hears this ditching birds going down, and I want to say he come out of the hellhole.
I think he did come out of the hellhole,
which would have been going up because the bird would have flipped
down. Right, that's the best place to come out at that point.
Oh, for sure.
The helo
coming out of it, period, is a good thing. Yeah, the hellhole, for anybody that doesn't know, that's what we call it, but it's a bottom exfil point out of the.
That's where you fast rope from, or they can hook up on the big cargo ones. I think that's where the pallets get hooked up.
Pallets get hooked up.
For the rigging.
Right. And so that's.
I'm not an air winger. I don't know how all that stuff goes.
That was pretty crazy. And then getting back to the book, after following that evolution, we'd done one field BZO evolution since I got there, and then that evolution, and then we kicked out on pre-deployment leave pretty quick. And by the time we kicked out on pre-deployment leave, it was the opinion of the command that we absolutely were going to Helmand, and they started floating the city of Marjah around.
Yeah, we heard that name.
They started floating it around because I remember by the time I got home, I knew where I was going, and I knew to tell my old man, like, hey, this one's going to be real as far as what they're telling me, so don't watch the news, right? No news is good news.
You say that in the book, if I remember right.
Yeah, no news is good news, and that was that was a trip. Anytime that you're going home and as the Marine or airman, soldier, sailor, what you do for a living, especially the special operators, critical skills operators, and line infantry fellows. We know what we do. We know what we do for a living, and a lot of times we don't expose exactly the details of what we do for a living to our families, and for obvious reasons. And I just remember that time. I think Marjah was my 5th deployment, and I remember at that time going home knowing, like, from what the command's saying, this one's real, and so I spent tons of time with family. I got 3 brothers from the original marriage. Then my dad started over, so then I got like some younger siblings too, and now. So spend time with family, spend time with my parents, my brothers, my sisters, and quality time, because what you're going to. And it's always hard because when you go home, well, at least in my experience, when I would go home, go home on leave, and it's like your whole family has your entire leave package planned out for you, right?
Right. And you don't want to do any of it.
Yeah, dates, times, where you're going to be, who you're meeting, when the pictures are going to be taken, all of these kinds of things, and you're sitting there kind of knowing what you're about to get into, and you know that they have no clue because they're, whatever. So I talk about that in the book, and everybody handles going away in different ways, but coming back off a post deployment or pre-deployment leave, it was like 1-2 skidoo, and we were going to be out the door.
Yeah, it was maybe a week.
Maybe a week. Maybe. No, I think it was a week to 10 days because we got a boot drop from SOI to make sure to talk to everybody else. Yeah, those poor bastards and Lions, man. We'll talk about them in the book, but you want to talk about trial by fire? These guys came from the School of Infantry, which is their school following boot camp, and they learned the basic skills of being a rifleman. Not saying that's bad, but they learned the basic fundamental building blocks, and in less than 10 days from graduation,
we're on a plane to Afghanistan.
We're on the Warbird.
I don't even know if I knew all 4 of their names that got dropped to our platoon before we left.
No way.
I knew ours. I knew the guy we got.
Yeah.
Old Lips.
Bridges. Yeah. PFC Bridges, and then there was a Brady and a Breland.
And they were in other squads.
They cropped us all the Bs from
Bradshaw.
Yep, and Bradshaw. All the Bs from whatever company they came from. We took that section.
Right.
1-6 probably got the A's.
For the situation, I don't know, we're going to go over it, but I'm impressed.
Oh, man. I mean,
I couldn't imagine that.
Talk about some warriors. So these kids, 18 years old, just out of boot camp, probably super stoked about going to the fleet. Maybe not, right?
Right.
And then they go to the fleet and they deploy to Afghanistan to the fight of their lives 10 days later.
Well, you know what? They all made it. So when they got to be not boots anymore on their second pump, like they got their first, they didn't even have to go through a workup. Like that's some of the hardest parts for a boot, I think. They got to go straight to the fun shit,
and there's probably
there's good and bad to both situations. Don't get me wrong.
Sure, sure, definitely. In this situation was just an unfortunate situation where we needed four dudes. Yep. I think that ultimately the company took more than 4 dudes from that crop, but we got ours and we needed them and we used them and they came in handy and they were awesome.
Yeah.
And so boom, we come back from pre-deployment leave. We get our guys from SOI, and then we make our way to Cherry Point and we leave
after the first of the year in
I think it was January 2. 1 or 2, we got to Cherry Point, and then we decided we were going to stay the night there because they weren't really ready to let us leave.
Right.
So we played that game, that sleep in the airport game.
Not even really an airport. It's more just a place with chairs.
Wasn't even really sleep either.
There wasn't even a lot of chairs.
No, the shenanigans started there. I mean, we didn't even hit the deployment yet. And we had people fall asleep, and me and Herbie crawled around tying people's boots together.
Of course, it's Star Squad.
And we're like, hey, man, if you're going to put us here and all of these guys are going to fall asleep with boots on, we're tying all of them together. And that was a mess afterwards.
Good job.
Yeah. And so, boom, then we're on the plane. We're on that 20-hour venture.
Germany.
Yeah, Ramstein. Stopped in Ramstein on the way over.
Didn't get off the plane.
Not true. Stopped in Ramstein on the way home. We stopped in Shannon, Ireland on the way over.
Was it Shannon? Yeah, because we didn't get off in Shannon.
Not true.
I don't know. Whatever you say.
Whichever one. We drank beer in Ramstein on the way back, or we drank beer in Shannon on the way back.
I know we went to Germany on the way back.
Okay, so then it was Shannon, Ireland on the way there. Okay. Either way, we stop, we refuel, we have a small break. People were rubbing the Ambien and the Robitussin out of themselves because, that's what a lot of guys would do, not in an irresponsible way. But when you got 19 hours to sit in one chair and watch the same 3 movies over and over, you want to go to sleep. You want to get that out of it. So everybody's waking up. We get there, and I think we landed in Kazakhstan. Is that true? Yeah, I think
Camp Manis.
I think Manis Air Base in Kazakhstan. And we landed there and did the customs.
Kyrgyzstan.
and did the rigmarole with getting our gear squared away and ready to now be put on a military bird so we could fly into zone. And so we stayed there for a couple days, playing spades and getting gear ready, and then we boarded.
So cold.
Yeah, it was snowing.
Yeah, it was snowing when we landed.
It was snowing.
And it was not snowing in North Carolina when we left.
That's a fact. That is a fact. And so cold, snowy, whatever. Boom, we move out of there and we take military aircraft into Camp Leatherneck. And Camp Leatherneck was joined with Camp Basham, which was the Brits' side of the base.
Yeah.
And I go over in the book kind of how that sets up. And if you want to know more about this, there's a lot more going on in the book, detail-wise about the bases, things that happened at the bases, things like that. But just as this first brief overview, we get over to Leatherneck, and then there's like an acclimatization period where, you get used to the weather, which at that time it was cold, so it wasn't a whole lot to get used to. Maybe just the air, and then you get your JAG Corps rules of engagement
First off.
And then I think that was the last time we got good haircuts for.
I wouldn't even call them good.
For a minute, but yeah. So we got our haircuts, we got our briefs, we got our rules of engagement, we got everything down, and then the next trip was to Dwyer.
Yeah.
Getting ever
C-130 to Dwyer, I think.
Getting ever closer to the invasion. And so we get to Dwyer, and at this point we're Dwyer shaping, really. We get attached to our Afghan National Army counterparts. We get to start working with them. Now we're in zone. The other battalions and companies and forces that were involved in the invasion were shaping Marjah as we were sitting, awaiting our time to fill the role, as it were, at Dwyer. And we took that time to do on-off drills with tourniquets. I know me and you personally took time to seek out the JTECs and the JFOs and learn the Excalibur rounds and the call for fires that they needed, the different, the specific details on calling an Excalibur or on calling a HIMARS rocket. And these were things that prior to this in my career I hadn't used. And so me and Bennett, we would be over there soaking up the knowledge, getting it from them, running prac apps through ourselves. Meanwhile, helping train the A&A day to day, and then getting used to the culture, a culture that is completely not like ours. Mm-hmm. And I would say that first Kandak that we invaded with was amazing. I mean, these were some warriors, but man, there's a cultural difference.
Well, at first too, with those ranges, it was a little dangerous on a few of those ranges that I remember we ran.
The one outside.
Yeah.
Was that Dwyer? Yeah,
I think it was
Dwyer.
All the squad leaders and team leaders had to be the range RSOs for the buddy rushes, and they were doing it all by themselves. No other Marines were with them.
Yeah, and with NATO weapons, some of them for the first time.
Which was.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a learning curve. There's a lot
I might have put my nut flap on my flak jacket for that one, which I very rarely wore. And I was like, we might want to throw it in horse collar too. Let's go ahead and throw the whole kit on.
Let's put the whole thing together. Yeah. So, and then they River City'd the phones, just meaning they cut the phone lines down like a week before, for OPSEC purposes, obviously, and that's great because we're the ones going in, so we want to have that too. You didn't want to risk a junior Marine not understanding, the gravity of the situation, calling home and giving anything away. But then again, they announced that we were coming and where we were coming, right before we went anyway. So,
but they didn't know we were going to fly helicopters in the middle of the city. But they may have, but they may not have. So
yeah, most likely. But so then we thought we were going to push from Dwyer, but I don't think that their pad could hold all the helos that we were going to take.
I don't know where 1/6 pushed from. Their helo company. I don't know if they was Bravo.
Yeah, it was Bravo company, but I think they pushed. I think that's why there were so many birds on the tarmac that night.
Oh, I didn't know we pushed from the same spot.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
they were going to push from Dwyer, and we pushed from Leatherneck or whatever. But we ended up going back to Leatherneck.
Yeah, so we thought we were going from Dwyer. We weren't. We pushed back to Leatherneck, I think 2 days prior.
2 days, yeah. If you remember right, we found phones because we ended up calling home again.
Maybe.
Because that was an interesting phone call with my father.
Oh yeah, tell me.
So a little bit about how I ended up joining the Marine Corps. Dad, and I hope you're all right with me telling the story, Dad. So it doesn't matter; it's getting told anyway.
Kind of has to be now.
I've led into it too much.
Sorry, pops.
Love you. Dad was a former Marine. I think I had mentioned that earlier. And also a retired prison guard, a correctional officer. And when I was in high school, I was kind of hemming and hawing over joining the Marine Corps. And he ended up calling the recruiter from the prison phone and telling him our home phone number and telling him to ask for a certain named individual, me, and I may want to talk to him. So that pretty much spurred it on. That's how I joined the Marine Corps. And I did not know that until I called him from Camp Leatherneck in Marjah, or in
and he
Helmand
told you.
Province, and he told me that story. And I said, "Really, Dad? Kind of biting you in the ass right now, isn't it? Because your only child's getting ready to go on some big operation, isn't it?" He's like, "I love you."
Battle.
Yeah, battle.
Yeah.
So
yeah, man.
That's the story of kind of how I got in the Marine. Well, I say that, but it was always going to happen. It just, he kind of pushed the
nudge.
issue, maybe. Yeah, the nudge. Yeah.
Daddy Charette just wanted to make sure
Sometimes
that he gave the proper pat.
Sometimes your compass just needs that little deviation.
Adjustment.
Yeah.
Little nudge.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, but it was just funny because we found those phones. I remember because we walked almost all the way into the Brits area. I remember walking a long way from where we were stationed. Yeah. And there was 2 or 3 phones right there that we used. And I think we had to hide because I don't think we were supposed to use it. Fuck that.
Sounds like he pretty much completely blew opposite with you that anyway, right? So.
No, he didn't. I didn't tell him where. I didn't tell him how.
He just could feel it.
Dad knew.
Yeah, man.
I mean,
he's like, okay, he hasn't called in a week and a half, and now
brothers.
He's calling.
Yeah.
There's a crack in his voice.
Like, he knew.
Yeah.
And he knew just to watch the news. And as you know from some of these pictures on the wall here, if Dad didn't find it on the internet, it probably didn't exist.
Right.
Because he was retired at that point too.
Right.
So he didn't have, I'm not saying he doesn't have anything going on, but that was his job for 7 months, was to try and find as much information as possible on what we were doing.
For sure, right? And like, never does it ever happen when you say, don't watch the news.
No, they're
it's
going
like
now
telling
they're
a 4-year-old
to watch it.
not to watch something. It's like, oh, really? And so, like, I did the same thing with my wife. I'm like, no news is good news. Keep the news off. Don't watch it because this one might be a little testy. They're saying this one might be testy. And what does she do? She gets on her email, knows that our combat correspondents and reporters, C.J. Chivers and Tyler Farr, who shot these photos and helped out a lot with bringing the book to fruition. She knew they were going, and they were with the New York Times. So what she do? She finds a way to get her email that anything that says 3-6 Kilo Company, 2nd Platoon, Marjah, Afghanistan, any of those key words would shoot articles about that to her email. And it's like, yeah, that's like the complete opposite of don't watch the news. That's like begging the news
to come to you.
Yeah. And
thank God there wasn't Twitter.
Right.
Big thing back then, because hashtags would have been all over Marjah.
I know, right? And so yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's wild. Different things going on, different perspectives, and I get it.
And the other thing is, I had 2 contracts sitting in front of me whenever I did join, or when I was getting ready to sign the papers or get the paperwork ready or whatever. My recruiter had to figure out which MOS I was going to be. As you know, now I'm a mechanic in the civilian world, right? So it was either diesel mechanic in the Marine Corps or fast company, which eventually 0311. I got to be a grunt somehow. Dad talked me into the 0311 with security forces
You know,
contract.
it's crazy. Like most parents try to talk their kids out of
Out of
that,
it? Yeah,
out of
he
that.
talked
And
me
your
into
dad,
it.
your dad was like, "Hey,
Well, he was like,
go talk to my son."
"You're and I actually had a great recruiter. I think because he knew, like, you're not going to get anything over these people.
Right.
But he was a mortarman, 0341.
Your recruiter was?
Yeah.
Nice.
Sergeant Santiago.
It's intense.
But he told me, he said, if you don't do it, you're going to regret it the rest of your life. And guess what? I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. And you got it in, like, all the way.
Yeah.
All the way in.
So
check. Okay, and then and then we're in it, right? And then so we're at Leatherneck, and we did a dry run because somebody wrecked a bus.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So we're like on the way to the tarmac to load up on birds, and it was probably a lie, right? Probably just lied to us, like, nope, just to piss us off.
Conditions might have been bad or whatever.
Yeah, it could have been air, it could have been something with choppers, it could have been anything. But whatever happens, one of the buses tipped over in the ditch on the way up to the tarmac. We ended up getting told to turn around. We go back to this GP tent, and we only have the stuff we're pushing in. We're fully loaded down. The only piece of warming gear that I had was the tarp.
You didn't even have a poncho on?
Mm-mm.
My
backpack was full of claymore mines, hand grenades, 240 rounds, and white phosphorus 60mm mortars.
Grenades everywhere.
Mortars. And
mortars, yeah.
60s, yeah. And so we go back to this GP tent, and it's like, this is sweet. What? Okay. So, hey, lesson coming up for you right here. Lesson to take away: do not use your tarp to cover up with at night
in the cold.
Case in point, you will wake up like I did, using that thick tarp to cover up with, soaking wet from your own condensation because the new tarps don't breathe. So don't do what I did on the night before your invasion with the only pair of camis that you have, frog suits at that time.
For some reason we're dropping in frog suits at 20 degrees.
Dropping in, you don't want to blow up, I guess, and burn to death. And
at that point, it might have been, if you got a little fire on me, I might have been a little bit happy.
I know, it is really cold. And so, a wild time.
Yep.
A wild time for sure. So now it's go time. Now it's the actual day. I'm soaking wet because I'm sitting in my own breath because I decided to cover up with a tarp because I didn't have anything else to cover up with. And I'm like, all right, I'm just covered with my tarp. No big deal. Wasn't thinking. We get up and then we have to manage through the day because the invasion is going to go at night, something like 2 a.m.
Yep.
And so we get through our day doing some training, doing some talking, some TDGs, run tactical decision games with the team leaders.
They actually did a pretty good job at the chow hall that day too, if I remember right. Like they let us get after it in the chow hall.
Oh yeah. They had that was a good chow hall.
Yeah,
good chow hall. Something we didn't bring up was our warning order as a platoon, and I think it's probably important to go back to that because we got a pretty in-your-face warning order. I mean, we got a nice 5-paragraph order, which is good. And it told us everything we needed. We had our commander's intent, we had our schemes and maneuver, concept operations, in state, right? We got everything we needed. And as soon as the order concluded, and everybody was locked in. I mean, some kind of zone we were locked into. And E-Man hit us with the talk.
Yeah.
It was like he gave us the warning order. He gave us the order. We understood what was going on. He spot checked, and then it was like he turned the recording off, even though there wasn't nobody listening, wasn't nobody else in the tent. And he proceeded to give us a talk that started out with "fuck these motherfuckers."
Yep.
And became known forever in 2nd Platoon as the "fuck these motherfuckers" speech. And it wasn't the motherfuckers of Marjah, and that's an important distinction to make. It was, if you wanted to fight the United States Marine Corps infantry, conventional
or unconventional,
we're coming at you.
Yep. Anyway.
And bring them down. Bring the guns down. Plant your bombs. Play your games. And at the end of the day, in a matter of days, we're going to own this space. And we did. And release some of the, hopefully, with the goal of releasing some of the oppression off the people there. Right. And so we got that speech, and it was fired everybody up. We left there pumped, and then eventually now we lead up to Leatherneck, and it's 1 in the morning, and we're making our way to a tarmac. And average age 22. Average age 22.
I mean, LT was what, 20, 24?
He's same age as me, yeah.
That's still crazy to me.
And then
That
we
was
got our
actually one of
platoon
the
sergeant,
points I wanted
staff
to bring up.
sergeant, staff sergeant Wright was just a bit older than us.
Sergeant Ray might have been about 29,
Yeah.
30.
Yeah, I mean, not much older.
I mean,
and those are two, three of the oldest guys in the platoon. Everybody else ranging from
Well,
18 to 22, 18 to
Pop and
25.
Sand.
Right. Well, I'm just saying, out of 40 guys, when your average age is 22, you get, you see the picture.
Right.
These are a bunch of young guys.
For sure.
And here we are, and we're standing in the middle of the night. Everybody's got their nods up on their heads. Everybody's loaded down. And I mean, the packs were heavy. Like I said, we were carrying everything from every piece of ammo for every gun that we had, every machine gun. And, the 11s were spread loading that weight because we had to take so much.
Could not pack enough.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the day that they came out and gave us our loadouts for squad. And it was like 2 pallets full of rockets and APOBs and small arms, machine gun. I mean, we had everything. Flare, I mean, smoke, everything. Every squad internal weapon that there is, we had it.
You could probably pretty much go through the Marine Corps armaments like manual, and it would have been
just check the boxes.
Just check the boxes as you go through.
The big outline boxes of weapons, not even the individual ones. Just if it's organic to a squad.
Yeah, I can't think of one that's TO to a squad that we didn't have.
I mean, we had AT4s, LULs, Claymores, frags,
and
flashes.
those are the big 3 right there.
Trip flares. I never carried a trip flare in Iraq.
I had C4.
Yep, C4 satchels. We had the quarter-ounce stick, the door poppers.
Yeah.
Quarter pound of. I think it was a quarter pound of TNT, and then it had like a blasting cap prepped in it.
Yep.
And the door poppers hanging off the fronts of our chest was not.
We had smoke grenades,
everything,
phosphorus grenades,
everything.
Yeah.
Incendiary grenades. We were melting engine blocks with.
I say there's nothing in the Marine Corps armaments that we didn't carry. One of us at least had something.
Or multiple.
Yeah. I had multiple phosphorus rounds for the mortars. I know that.
Yeah.
And then combat lifesaver bags, I think, got issued out too.
Yeah. Extra tourniquets on everybody.
Actually, if you look at some of the pictures, you can see 2 tourniquets on my shoulders, and then I've got 2 more on my sides.
Yeah, and you carried a CLS anyway, so you had a pack full of them there. And so, just a note on these pictures, if you guys want to follow some of these, we're going to be adding pictures to the social media pages. We'll talk more about that at the end, but
some of them are from the New York Times, and then some of them are just from what we took, the very limited ones we took. But so,
all right, so there we are. We're on the tarmac, and it's about to go down, as they say. And obviously everybody's got nerves, everybody's got emotions, but I would say for the most part, I mean, at that point, I feel like everybody was pumped. I feel like everybody was locked on. We all knew the mission. Every man knew their part and 2 above them. And we got on those choppers knowing that we were ready.
Yeah.
And as weird as that sounds, I took over in September of the squad, and going into Marjah in January, I mean, I knew the names. I knew enough to operate, and we were ready.
Yeah.
Everybody was confident, and so then we load the birds, right? And I don't know what you remember about loading the birds or what it felt like to you, but it felt like it felt like forever before we actually lifted
off. Forever.
Right. Okay. So
I feel like we sat there for about 4 hours, and I was on the floor with someone in between my legs.
And you were in between somebody else's legs.
And I was in between somebody else's legs, which I don't even know how you fit between someone else's legs with the size of the pack that we were carrying.
Yeah.
But I was wondering if you wanted to cut it off for this one and go into the social media, and we can pick the story up on the other side on the next episode.
Yeah.
All right. So if anybody'd like to follow us on Facebook, It's at Choices Not Chances Podcast. We will be developing a YouTube channel, so you can follow us there. It'll be somewhere along the lines of Choices Not Chances. We'll be developing an Instagram page and a Twitter. And this podcast will be wherever you can find your podcast. We're going to try and get on as many platforms as we can. That way we don't cut anybody out. So with that, Ryan has a special announcement. We're going to come out the gate kind of hot on another topic.
All right, guys. Last announcement. Like you said, Facebook, go in the search bar, type in Choices Not Chances Podcast, and boom, it's going to pull up. And it's going to be in these first couple episodes, we're going to start adding some pictures, of the studio, adding pictures of times in Marjah, and we are going to cover more of the book in the next few episodes. Big announcement is that we're going to launch our first annual writing competition. And this is just something to stir thoughts, get people going through the process and putting their thoughts down on paper. I think it's good for multiple reasons. I think it's good for clarity of mind. I think it's good for being a therapeutic process. It's very therapeutic for me to write my book, and not only write it, but it brought me back in contact with a lot of my guys. Like, hey, you remember this, you remember that. What do you have to add? Checking for accuracy. And so it brought guys back together, which was awesome. And I just believe in it. I've been writing, my thoughts down through counseling and through the book for several years. And I think it's good. I think it's good for the mind. It's good engagement. And it's a good way to get out of your own way, get out of your own head. And so the competition rules are going to be on our Facebook page. You can visit the Choices Not Chances Facebook handle and get everything you need as far as what we're looking for, how we're gonna decide winners, and then ultimately we've decided that the first place winner of the writing competition is going to have the opportunity, if they choose, to come and run an episode over their writing, whatever it was that they wrote about. And this writing is going to be combat geared completely. And there'll be more details as the time gets closer, but we're going to start it with episode 1. So today's June 1st, and the competition winner will be announced by June 1st. It's an annual thing. So we'll accept submissions for about 6 months. That'll be in the rules on Facebook. And then after that, that gives us time to do what we have to do to, kind of weed it out and get down to the cream of the crop. And then we'll pick a winner. We'll announce to them that they won, and then we'll go live on an episode with them. So I think it's going to be good, guys. And no writing is bad writing. Send us all your thoughts on this. Put the effort in, put the time in, and send it to us. And I think it's going to be good for everybody. And we're not just going to read one, but we are only going to air one. And so there's that.
I do want to say, because we hadn't said it yet, we will be dropping on Tuesdays. With our schedule right now, we're going to be trying to, we're going to try for once a week, but we may only be able to do every other week. So you're just going to have to bear with us in the beginning.
Yeah, logistical issues.
But we're going to figure it out. Tuesdays.
Yeah, so Tuesdays is when we're going to drop. And the last thing, let me get your book real quick.
All right.
One more time for those of you who didn't see it, I'm going to go ahead and show it again. This is my new book, Lions of Marjah. Just published April 21st, so we're about a month in, give or take a day or a couple hours. And yeah, so it's available on Amazon right now. You go to Amazon, type into the search bar Lions of Marjah, and it'll pop up and populate. It's $16.99 right now on Amazon for the paperback copy, and I think it's $3.99 for the Kindle version. So I have a Kindle version also available if you're a Kindle reader. And so you can get those now, and I appreciate your support, and I think you'll like the ride. I mean, we're going to continue to talk about the book for the next, 3 episodes. We're going to have a couple different perspectives. we're going to have my perspective as a squad leader, and then Matt's perspective as, you know, the APL, you know, my right hand. But you're also going to have the perspective of a first time deploying guy named Michael Grimes, who had to step in and fill some big boots just prior to the push, and had to take that team leader role and really shined in that role.
Yeah.
And served as multiple roles in the squad. So that's going to be a good episode, and we're really going to touch on different perspectives of the squad throughout different sections of the book, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely added material. If you've already read the book, then you're going to get extra material that's not in it. If you haven't read the book, you're not going to get all the book material, so you better go out and get that too, and then you'll have it all. Mm-hmm. So
also, as far as the book goes and finding it on Amazon, if you have any trouble spelling Marjah, because there are multiple different ways to spell it, you can look up Ryan Rogers. If you type in his name in the search bar, the book will come up. I tried it multiple times.
Boom. All right, guys, we appreciate it, and again, we appreciate all your support. All the vets out there, bear with us on the book. We're going to do the review over the next 2-3 episodes, and then I'm going to get you guys some content. Our first interview content's now been secured, and that's going to be Dr. Michael Blair, and he is former grunt Marine, banged up over in Iraq, came home, became an orthopedics doctor, and specializes in prosthetics. And it's the kind of prosthetics that tap into the brainstem, and these guys can literally think about turning their hand. And I've seen the videos, and it's amazing technology. Great for anybody that has buddies with prosthetics, family members with prosthetics. You have a prosthetic yourself, you are going to want to tune in to the episode with Dr. Mike Blair. All right, guys, I appreciate your time. We're glad that you came and hang out with us, gave us a little bit of your time, and we hope you soak some in. We hope you enjoyed the book review so far, and the podcast to come, guys. We're going to do nothing but go up. So hit that subscribe button, smash some likes for us, join our social media pages for all the pictures, updates on the writing competition and events in the upcoming future, and we'll see you guys on Tuesday. Have a good one.
Thanks.
How we doing, everybody? This is the co-host of Choices Not Chances podcast, Matthew Charette. As mentioned in the beginning of the show, this episode of the podcast is sponsored by Louisiana Gun Shop. The folks at Louisiana Gun Shop have been a longtime supplier of firearms and shooting supplies and services, as well as very good friends of mine. One day, we will get the owner and founder, Harlan Boblet, on the show. At Louisiana Gun Shop, the sky's the limit when it comes to getting the firearms and accessories you want for your current or future firearms. They have a nice selection of handguns, rifles, and shotguns in stock, or can order just about any firearm you could want or need. They specialize in concealed carry handguns and custom AR-15 builds. In addition to firearms, they also carry ammo, suppressors, optics, and a wide variety of gun parts for the upgrade and maintenance of your firearms. If you want to get further into the upgrade side of things, they provide customization services such as Cerakote, laser engraving, and Kydex holsters. So like I stated before, Louisiana Gun Shop is located on Highway 90 West in Broussard, Louisiana, just south of Lafayette. It used to be Louisiana Gun Shop did not have an online presence, but now I am happy to announce that their website is up and ready for business for online sales to all 50 states at louisianagunshop.com. Louisiana Gun Shop also offers Louisiana residents concealed carry classes for a very reasonable price. Harlan's experience in the concealed carry space when it comes to the laws and the do's and the don'ts is pivotal in attaining your Louisiana concealed carry license. As well as the firearm market, Harlan also conducts explosives training for Louisiana blasters licenses for oil field and special effects workers in Louisiana. Workers in these fields from out of state will also need to have their training in this field to complete their work in Louisiana. So whether you need a firearm, upgrade your old firearm, targets and ammo for a range day, or you just like to talk to people who support the Second Amendment, Louisiana Gun Shop is your place, either in person or online. Remember, they are located on Highway 90 West in Broussard, Louisiana, just south of Lafayette, or online at louisianagunshop.com. You can also follow them on Instagram and Facebook at Louisiana Gun Shop. A special thanks to Harlan and Jenny at Louisiana Gun Shop for sponsoring the show. Please support them so they can support us and keep the podcast free for all. Thanks, have a great day, Semper Fi, and God bless America.
Not too far. You're marking the building. Hit him. Yeah, that's good. That's a good shot. That's money. Yeah.